Okay, I am really grateful to welcome Emma to the stage. Emma's one of our associates. We used to work together. She's doing phenomenal work from France to support the UK school system, all about life-friendly leadership. Good morning, Emma, and happy International Women's Day.
Good morning. Thank you for having me, and happy International Women's Day. I don't know if you saw, I posted on LinkedIn earlier this morning that it sort of bypasses us here in France, as does World Book Day. So really nice to have an opportunity to celebrate and have a sense of community around this day. So thanks for having me.
Brilliant. It's great to have you here. So I'm going to disappear. You've got your 10 minutes to present all the fab work you're doing, and then we'll pick up questions from the chat to wrap it up. So I'll see you shortly. Thank you, Emma.
Thanks, Emma. And I think Richard's going to share my slides. Yay, brilliant. So hello and welcome to everybody who is listening live or listening back to the recording. My name's Emma Sheppard, and I'm a former lead practitioner and English teacher, and I founded the MTPT project in 2016 when I became a mum and went on maternity leave with my son Hugo. Now, since that point, we have since grown into the UK's only charity for parent educators, so teachers, leaders and support staff. And what we do is we support teachers when they become parents, all the way through normally to when their youngest child is about 5 years old and starting school. And we also help schools to become more family-friendly and life-friendly workplaces to build a more sustainable teacher workforce. And if we see the next slide, I'll tell you a little bit about why mothers in particular are so important to the health of the teacher workforce. Now, this is an infographic that shares the information that we know about a typical woman's progression through the education sector if they choose to become mothers or if they're able to become mothers. Now, we know that 76% of our teachers are women. We're a female-dominated profession, and half of those teachers have children under the age of 18, which is pretty standard across all industries. Now, we also know, and this is fairly recent data, last year, April, that 67% of women aged 30 to 39 are mothers, and 77% of women in our workforce aged 40 to 49 are mothers. And actually, some of the more recent leavers and returners data demonstrates that there is a sort of a big returner rate in the 40s, which sort of points to a career break for having children and then coming back into the profession once children are a little bit older. Now, what we also know, and again, this is a freedom of information request that I make every few years or so, because it's not, it's collected, but it's not published as part of the school's workforce census. But we know that 4.8% of the teacher workforce are on maternity leave at any given time. So right now, about just under 20,000 women are on maternity leave, which averages out at around 2 per school. Now, unfortunately, women are also in this age bracket, this 30 to 39 age bracket, typical childbearing age. They are also the largest demographic to leave teaching every single year, and they have been since 2017. Now, that percentage, about 21%, has come down from 27%, which is good news. But in 2023, we lost 9,147 female teachers aged 30 to 39, and we know that they are leaving for reasons related to motherhood. In too many cases, women are finding that teaching career and motherhood are simply not compatible. Now, when we do lose them, we have seen an increase in returns rates in 2023, and I'm excited to see what the school's workforce census data shows us about those returners in a couple of weeks' time. But when we do lose them, unfortunately, more than half of those who are leaving to look after their families don't return to the classroom. When they do stay in the profession, women are more likely to work part-time in order to balance their domestic and professional obligations, because women in our wider society are still taking on the majority of caring responsibilities. So just as a comparison, 27% of female teachers work part-time, only 8% of male teachers are working part-time. And we see a similar statistic in that return data. Women are returning to the profession after a caring-related career break, looking for part-time work at about the same rates. Now, unfortunately, part-time work means part-time pay, and we have a significant gender pay gap in the education sector, which is exacerbated by the dominance of women in part-time positions, because there are progression penalties and pay penalties associated with part-time working still. So we have a 20.4% gender pay gap in education, which is one of the worst industries in the country, and that is a gap that widens lo and behold, between the ages of 35 to 39, when women are most likely to become mothers in the education profession. Now we see that impacting our leadership pipeline. So we know that 65% of our head teachers across primary and secondary are women, which sounds like a lot, but actually in comparison to the rest of the workforce, we see a difference in that representation if 76% of our workforce are women. And actually it's really terrible at secondary level, where only 40% of our secondary head teachers are women. Now, what's also really interesting is that of these female head teachers, 60% of them are mothers, whereas 90% of our male head teachers are fathers. So again, we're seeing that it's easier to be a father and a head teacher than it is to be a mother and a head teacher, indicating that women are still feeling as if they have to choose between having a family life or pursuing a leadership career in education. Next slide, please, Richard. So the work of the MTPT project, even in 2025, is still needed. The parent demographic are our largest group of leavers. So those women aged 30 to 49, men and women actually, make up half of our leavers. So for both men and women, we're seeing a huge exodus in that parent bracket. And 9,147 of those were female teachers aged 30 to 39, which is almost 1,300 more than the 25 to 29-year-olds of both genders that get so much attention when it comes to investing in retention measures. So the question that we ask is what are the simple things that we can do to retain them? And then obviously what are the more deep-rooted things that we can address? Now, dichotomously, the parent demographic are also a huge chunk of our workforce. So female teachers alone, aged 30 to 39, make up 27% of our workforce. It's the biggest demographic of our workforce that we have. And we actually have more female teachers aged 30 to 39 than all male teachers of all ages put together, which is an issue in itself, as teaching is still considered a caring and gendered female career. But when they're staying, again, our question is, are we looking after them effectively? And unfortunately, in too many cases, not all cases, but in too many cases, the answer is no. Next slide, please, Richard. Now, what did the MTPT project do to address some of these issues associated with the motherhood penalty? Well, we do a great deal of research. So that's our 2024 research report that we did with the New Britain project, which built on our big study from 2018 that points squarely at the motherhood penalty having a significantly damaging impact on the health of our workforce. We run coffee mornings and networking events for our grassroots community, and we encourage CPD providers and schools and organisations to be more family friendly so that when they need to, colleagues can combine family and professional life so that they're not feeling torn between being a good mum or being a good teacher. And we also have a book with a fantastic load of information and positive and celebratory case studies showing how teaching can be one of the most family-friendly career options if the right conditions are in place. Next slide, please. Now, we also do campaigning work, and that campaigning work is around two foci for the next 3 to 5 years. The first thing that we want to offer our community nationally is what we're calling a cradle to classroom programme of parental leave transition support. So we want to be able to support colleagues with coaching, entitlement and return to work workshops from the beginning of their leave all the way through to when their youngest child is 5 years old. We want that to be an entitlement in the same way that the ECT and the MPQs are as part of the Golden Thread, recognising that if we do more to address the needs of this audience at this particular time in their life, then actually it's a retention measure, not a bonus or an addition or a diversity measure. It is about retaining some of our most experienced colleagues in the workforce. And we also already have fantastic support from our Teaching School Hub partners for 2/3 of that programme in the blue and the green. And we're working on building the full programme by September 2025. And then we're going to evaluate the impact on retention and gender equality and wellbeing on that particular demographic in response to the coaching. We've also already got some brilliant partners in Cullen St Gabriel's Trust, Croydon Education Partnership, Paris Federation and Oasis, who are offering one-to-one coaching to colleagues that meet their criteria. So we're well on our way to empowering our community with that coaching and support over the maternity and parental leave transition period. Next slide, please. And then the second of our campaign, you might not be able to see it, the table there, is around equal and improved parental leave and pay for school staff. And if you can't see the figures in that table, it comes from our Missing Mothers report, and it demonstrates that in comparison to other graduate industries, teaching is very poorly paid when it comes to maternity pay, and even worse when it comes to paternity pay. So we're doing a lot of work around piloting equal and improved leave and pay for school staff as a way to tempt people into the profession, retain them in the profession, and making sure that they're getting a sense of value over their maternity leave and paternity leave, and also ensuring that they can actually afford to take time off with their children. Next slide, please. I've got a minute to go, so I'm going to finish just with some of the opportunities that you can access immediately, whether that's signposting them to your staff or accessing them yourself. So we have fully funded parental leave group coaching programs available to state school colleagues working in England, and we have fully funded return to work workshops, again, for state school teachers in England. Independent school colleagues, you can join us, but unfortunately the funding is just for state school colleagues, and we've still got 2 group coaching cohorts running until the summer and 4 more return to work workshops to go, so that if you are currently on a period of maternity, adoption or shared parental leave, then you can join us to get a bit of support and boost to help you to do your leave your way and to find that elusive sense of balance when you go back to work at what can be a very challenging time. And then in the middle, coming up on the 21st and 22nd of March to celebrate Mother's Day, is our Missing Mothers virtual conference, which is a 2-morning event showcasing the work of the MTPT project and the practical solutions that we can do both at systems level, so as leaders, and at grassroots level to make sure that teaching is a sustainable career choice. And that's me done, so thank you so much.
Amazing, ever efficient with your timekeeping as well, Emma, and so concise. So I knew there's going to be lots of data, so there's no questions in the chat because I think the audience are probably processing all of the data. But I've got 2 questions for you. Yeah. I know we've got governors and trustees on the call. What questions should they be asking at a trust level and a governance level to support your work?
Yeah, I think one of the big challenges that we're seeing is understanding and acknowledging and challenging school leaders around mothers being workforce. So not what are you doing to be kind to your mothers, but actually what is your staffing like? How many colleagues do you have out on maternity leave? What are you doing to support them as they come back from leave? Not to be kind to them, not as a necessarily ethical decision, but as a retention measure. What does your 5-year plan look like in terms of who might be going on leave soon or in the next 5 years, and how are you building capacity within your teams to make sure that when they come back, they are well supported and able to remain with you. So I think important questions around staffing and seeing that as a long-term plan. Women will get pregnant, people will adopt, people will become parents. It's not something that it's not a bullet to be dodged. It's a reality to plan for if you're planning effectively. And I think as well, it's very live at the moment, but the issue of flexible working and exactly what the flexible working policies say and what the flexible working culture on the ground is in your organisations. We are still seeing too many cases of unofficial policies saying that colleagues can't work part-time or flexibly at leadership level, or TLRs being paid pro rata, which actually is what the school teachers paying conditions suggests, and I'm sure Lindsay will talk a little bit about that maybe, but we can do something within our schools to address that. And also then the third thing around the gender pay gap. When we do the gender pay gap reporting in larger organisations, how much of that gender pay gap is actually a motherhood pay gap, and what are we doing about it as an organisation?
Yeah, really good point. I've got a third question to add in as well, because your thing about this is reality. With a female heavy profession, Emma and I are both English teachers. We used to work together. The school before I worked with Emma, I was head of English. I had 10 women. They were all either pregnant, on mat leave, trying to get pregnant. We were all at that age, but there was quite a lot of miscarriage. And I want just to speak about baby loss and bereavement. I know you have helped with our toolkit on this. I think it's thinking about the pastoral care, and I've heard some horror stories in the last few weeks, Emma, about the duty of care not being there. Do you want to just do some signposting around that piece of your work?
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose the first thing to know is that the law has recently changed as part of the Employment Rights Bill. So previously it was, I think, 24 weeks. If you're 24 weeks and over pregnant, then you would get your full maternity leave entitlement, and then there's a leave attached to that and some legalities. But prior to 24 weeks, so if you miscarry at 22 weeks or 23 weeks, you can be expected to be back in the building the next day and cracking on. Now, that's unfortunately just not how miscarriage works. And even a miscarriage, a missed miscarriage, or an early miscarriage can represent a significant bereavement for both parents or whichever parents are involved. And happily now, the new Employment Rights Bill has just introduced 2 weeks of bereavement leave for miscarriages before 24 weeks. So schools need to be up to date with that so that they're not denying colleagues this new legal entitlement to leave, even if they miscarry very, very early, because for some people, even an early miscarriage, the first time might be a significant emotional loss, or that might be the third, fourth, fifth miscarriage they've had on their way to trying to become parents. And the more that happens, it becomes a really, really difficult emotional struggle. We're a performative career, so being able to just pull yourself together and stand in front of a class, a challenging class or a big audience is inhumane, frankly.
Yeah, I completely agree. I can see our next speakers are here. I was going to ask one final question, Emma. We've got some international colleagues on the call today, speaking and listening. We know you're a UK charity and the funding's UK specific. Any tips or signposting to the international school system?
Yeah, I think the one reason that we don't engage more, I think, with international schools is that they are obliged to comply often to the laws in the country that they are based in, but their policy documents can be different to that in terms of if they want to offer more support or if they want to offer a different type of support. So when it comes to policy documents or cultural best practice, come to us. We're absolutely experts for that, but there might be some legalities associated with your country and the country that you're employing in or based in that might be slightly different to the expertise that I have around the legalities within the school, within the UK, sorry. So that's something that I would always throw back, because there's so much variety in terms of parenting policies or leave policies within different countries.
Yeah, really good point. I would still say, though, that a lot of your work is cultural work and strategic work and policy work. And if you're an international school listening, please do look at what Emma and her team can do to support you, because I'm seeing a lot of women from my network going to work internationally because they've got children. I met a lot of single mums out in Seoul who said they couldn't actually be a leader and have children if they weren't working internationally without perhaps the domestic support and the kind of the schooling support. So I think it's an interesting one. I'm going to let you go now, Emma. Thank you so much for joining us. I know you've been juggling your own children this morning as well.
They're so good. They're so good. They're very happy to play. I'm not making them do their homework.